insanity. Nomi Prins, best-selling author, researcher, whistleblower, insider, joins us. Nomi, what do you make of this ridiculous spectacle here on election night?
Well, I think like you, I'm glad it's over. It was a spectacle. It is a spectacle. I think I feel disappointed, not because Obama won, because had Romney won, I would have felt equally disappointed, because throughout the campaigning and throughout the debates and throughout the coverage of them, there was so very little attention paid to any factual detail. Not about the economy, not, as I'm sure you've talked about, national security and other issues, but where I focus on, the Wall Street aspect, the insurance company aspect, the Federal Reserve aspect. There was almost nothing mentioned about those items, and when it was, it wasn't true from either side. Romney did a bad job of calling out Obama lying. Obama did a bad job of skirting through and not even knowing what his administration did or didn't do, or at least pretending he didn't. And it was just disappointing. So I think what we have now is more of what we had yesterday without all of the fanfare.
I agree with you. I mean, obviously, this could still be contested with what we put the map up there. Florida, Virginia, Nevada, Colorado. That's it. You got 4 states still in play. Because, I mean, you know when Fox News is agreeing with the Huffington Post. I mean, their maps, in fact, guys, go from your map on Huffington Post to my map here on Fox News. I mean, when, you know, the folks that called it for Bush, when Al Gore, the evidence show, was probably the winner, if they're saying it looks like the establishment wants 4 more years of Obama. Go ahead, Nomi.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I was flipping back and forth between CNN and Fox just because I do that. And yeah, within 30 seconds of CNN announcing Obama had won, actually Fox did. I was surprised to see that Fox had conceded as fast as they did, but it just again shows you how very little was really at stake here. That, you know, at the margin, both of those sort of same but presenting themselves as polar media institutions say the same thing at the same time kind of is another indication of how this whole show went down.
What are you expecting, knowing that the same mega banks? I mean, talk about your Goldman Sachs experience, or was it J.P. Morgan? I forget. I didn't have your full bio tonight, and I'm a little bit tired of being on air more than 10 hours.
Yeah.
It was Goldman Sachs, right?
I was at Goldman, I was at Bear.
You were at a bunch. I mean, so from your experience, and what was it, managing director or whatever, of this type of stuff, where are they going? Because they're gutting Europe, they're gutting us, they're launching more wars. I mean, it's like watching Caligula run around and marry his horse or something. I mean, we are seeing elitist insanity, or do you disagree with that statement?
No, absolutely. One thing I realized this morning, well, I knew it, but I checked it, was that Europe had fallen off the map of our media because of the election. Now Europe is in a completely cataclysmic state, as we are, but we've hidden it so well with so much money from the Treasury Department creating debt, from the Federal Reserve and keeping excess debt on its books, that Wall Street basically utilizes in the form of their zero interest rate policy, which only helps the financial institutions keep their flow and their show going and hasn't funneled its way into the rest of the country, not in terms of reducing loans, not in terms of mortgages, not in terms of anything. So all of that basically is something that we're still dealing with. And the fact that Obama, during his campaigning, and he doesn't even need to mention this anymore because it's kind of done, has said he has reformed Wall Street, it is laughable. And the fact that Romney didn't call him up on it was also laughable. So they were both at fault for that, but we're stuck with Obama pretending and getting most of the population, or at least the half that voted for him, to believe that he somehow contained Wall Street, which he did not. They're still not showing what's truly on their books. They're still floating on zero interest rates, which aren't funneling into the rest of the economy. More than half of the $5 trillion of debt that the Treasury Department never bothered to explain and wasn't asked, and that Romney didn't ask about either and just assumed it was, you know, because of, quote, I don't know, big government, was because it was used to float Wall Street. Almost $2 trillion of that is still on the Fed's books. It's in at $1.6 trillion of Treasury bonds, debt created to do nothing. All of these things are part of the philosophies we're going to inherit that Wall Street is floating upon. And their next game, aside from decimating Europe, and I've mentioned this on the show before, is looking at how Latin America is the next area of opportunity for Wall Street. When they say area of opportunity, it means area to basically take advantage of because they didn't do it the first time, i.e. when the housing crisis was being created, and when the European crisis was created on the back of that. Now it's kind of funneling into Latin America. That's a next step. Health insurance is a next step. There are some mega mergers that have happened in the wake of, quote, Obamacare, which isn't care. And that is because these insurance companies are basically merging together to consolidate and take competition away from insurance rather than do what Obamacare says it was supposed to do, which is create more competitive rates for people to choose from and to reduce premiums. So all of that stuff, and I just said a lot, you'll probably unpack it for me, but all of that stuff has not changed and will not change. It's just been put beneath a media story that's focused on sound bites and the campaign, which is so focused on smaller sound bites. And now we're left with the remains of that going forward into 4 more years.
Yeah, I mean, Obama can sit here and loot us for foreign mega banks better than Romney can, because when Obama orders torture, it's loving. When he orders the bombing of Libya or Syria, it's loving. When he puts al-Qaeda into a country, it's loving. When he offs an ambassador using al-Qaeda, it's trendy. When he wiretaps us, it's cool. Whenever he does a banker bailout, it's fun. And so the system's like, hey, we like this. Maybe from now on, we'll, quote, have minority presidents forever. Because, I mean, it just seems to work. I mean, white liberals say, hey, do whatever you want. I'm not racist. And, quote, minorities say, hey, this is great. This guy looks like me. I mean, it's just completely, absolutely shallow. Obama now is just absolutely sweeping. They're now saying over at Fox News and over at George Soros, Media Matters, whatever you call it, Huffington Post, 290 votes, electoral votes to 203. So this is a landslide right now. These numbers prove accurate.
Yes, it's landslide. Electorally on a popular vote, it's pretty close. Last I looked, it was actually sliding towards Romney, and I don't know where the final vote is going to be. It's going to be very, very close on a popular vote, which is indicative of the division in the country, and it's obviously a landslide and a win on the electoral side, which also tells you a lot about how the Electoral College doesn't represent the country. But again, I think a lot of why Obama has won, and has particularly won the swing states that he won, is because he did manage to convince people, and Romney did not manage to have an alternative or convince people otherwise, or ask the right questions or whatever it was, that said, hey, I bailed out the auto industry, I fixed Wall Street, and I'm going to provide lower cost health care for everyone. And the thing is, even if he truly believed he was doing those things, they haven't happened, which meant he either didn't believe it and he said he did it, or he does believe it and it won't happen. And either way, we're left with the same situation, which is an unregulated Wall Street sitting on a mound of our debt and with zero interest rates, which are going to go on forever and at some point create more inflation, which they already have for things like food, for things like gas, for things like education, for things like health insurance. And he has a health insurance policy by which insurance companies have already increased their premiums for us by 50% since he declared since the policy was passed, and they're continuing to merge and consolidate and will reduce competition rather than increase competition. And nobody's noticing, not in either party, not in the news. And then the third thing, the auto bailout, at the end of the day, that was a bailout that was started by Bush. It was continued by default by Obama. And the fact of the matter is that both GM and Chrysler declared bankruptcy in June and April of 2009. They did go bankrupt. So the whole argument about who helped the industry or didn't help the industry, it still went through a bankruptcy, and it still came out with actually a total of fewer jobs. And this is according to GM's own books. So a lot of what was said didn't actually happen, and this is where I get really annoyed at the whole telling of it.
Nomi, before we let you go and obviously get updates from you soon and go to these phone calls from Harmander in Hong Kong, Lester in Arkansas, Lewis in Oklahoma, Nick in California, Noel in Virginia. We're going to get to everybody in a moment before we go back to Jakari Jackson, our reporters on the ground, watching these Obama people celebrate. I want to get into any other points you'd like to add about where you think things are going from your substantive research and understanding of these things. But first, watching people mindlessly get behind Romney and get that glaze in their eye, and watching Obama people do it, not knowing that they're bought and paid for by the same interests, which is so elementary to anyone who's done research, it's sad. And you almost can't even debate them. It's like it's like talking to a child when I was watching our reporter out there, you know, about, so you've come here to the mall to see Santa Claus. They're like, yes, Santa Claus, he won. Santa Claus, you know, we're doing good. Santa Claus is my friend. He bring me presents. And you just can't even argue with them. They just don't even get it. And I think that's what the establishment realizes, is that you've got, I don't say this with pleasure because I don't think of myself as particularly, you know, the greatest person around. It's actually saddening that more and more people I talk to are, they might as well already be in a grave. I mean, they're not even alive. They have no mind. They're just idiots. They're just mindless little trendy vassals. And I have no idea what they're going to do as things continue to rot and fall apart. And as they continue to cling to the lies and feel that they've been fulfilled by these, you know, empty delusions of grandeur.
Well, that's the thing. This entire spectacle is about the degree of shallowness in the political system. And yes, it has devolved and gotten more shallow. And yes, the media has been a part of that. And everything has become a soundbite without a lot of content or facts or evidence. I mean, when I do my work, I'm looking at publicly available information. I'm looking at Treasury Department documents. I'm looking at the Federal Reserve's books. I'm looking at, you know, the SEC filings of companies. I'm not, you know, making this stuff up. And I know that that's why it is so frustrating that people don't see this. And I think either they're so demoralized that the idea of two choices actually seems like choice rather than just sort of, you know, two heads of the same coin, or you know, not a heads and a tails, that they actually are the same. And I think that's sad. Because I believe that Americans can be smarter than that and can actually look at more informative dialogue, but it's just not happening. And I think not just the results of this election. It was obviously going to go to Obama or to Romney, and went to Obama, but the way in which the entire election was packaged, the lack of clarity on the issues, the lack of questions, the lack of data, the lack of just anything of content, was something that I just haven't seen in all the other elections that I've been alive for.
Well, yeah, they had to do that because they were so close to each other in reality.
They were so close. Their foreign policy was you know, nearly identical, if not identical. Their Wall Street policy, and I wrote a piece about this, how Wall Street won this election before we had it, was identical. Obama said he regulated Wall Street and didn't. Romney said we should regulate Wall Street and didn't realize it wasn't re-regulated. So it didn't matter. They were on the same side of that issue. You know, they were on the same side. You know, now we have Obama, who basically will continue what he has done, which is to act as if he has saved things like Wall Street's malice towards the rest of society, like healthcare, like the auto industry, when in fact there's really no deep analysis as to how that happened. There's no deep analysis as to why we have the debt that we have. It's just there, and now we don't even have an opportunity to pretend to have it in presidential debates. It's just going to sort of go into the ether, and we're going to be at the next phase of this financial crisis, because everything that has been created, the way the banks have operated, the way the insurance companies, which are banks, are acting more and more like banks every day, are operating, is on the wake of the last crisis, on having money that's to them available for free, on sitting back while everything else is inflated and the price of everything is inflated for the rest of the population, middle class, upper class, poorer class, the gamut. And that's what we're going to be left of. There's no need at this point for Obama to do anything else. The vote has been cast. The expectation to him is that he doesn't need to do anything, even if he wanted to, because whatever he did that wasn't enough was enough to get reelected.
NomiPrins.com is the website, and I notice you're writing a new book, All the President's Bankers.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm going to all the archives. I'm getting all the original documents for the past 100 years of the presidents, the bankers that surrounded them, all the relationships, the dealings, how it affected us. It's really a lot of work, but it's very exciting. I hope it will be good when it's all sorted.
What's your prediction in the next 4 years? I mean, obviously more tyranny. Will the bad guys just continue to win? Or, I mean, I do see somewhat of an awakening happening. There's either people are getting deeper into a coma or they're waking up more and more. What is Nomi Prins, you know, a whistleblower from inside Goldman Sachs, where do you see things going?
I truly believe that the financial system has not been healthy. And when I say that, it's the international financial system, not just our bigger banks. And I think that's something that's been ignored in this election period. their numbers are not representative of what's actually going on. There's still a lot of fakery in the books. There's still a lot of floating on zero interest rates. The Fed's in this position where if they raise rates, it's going to tank the banks, which is going to tank the economy further, which is going to tank the stock market and so forth, which is going to be very negative. And if they don't raise rates, they're basically going to, at some point, have the inflation that they say isn't happening catch up with them. In the meantime, we as individuals are seeing that every day, inflated prices for everything. I think this continues. There's no way out of it. So I think it continues, and I think it gets worse. And I think it is a global problem between the United States and Europe, and I think it will also encapsulate Latin America. There's a lot of countries there that have been ignored, such as Argentina, et cetera, that will be the next Spain, that have real crises in front of them. And I just think we're going to see another leg of what we saw in late 2008 that's been plastered over by the Federal Reserve policy, by creating debt to cover it, but you can only do it along.
And the globalists have been exporting the inflation, exporting the collapse, but it's creeping back here. I mean, when the chickens do come home to roost, how bad will it be, and what do you see the time frame as being?
Well, I think it happens within the next 4 years. I think it's happening. It's just we're not paying attention to it because in Europe, debt is being created to cover up the negative situation. Here, trillions of dollars have been created. And I think with Obama, more will be created. So I think it's going to be 2 to 3 years before we see, a massive change. I think it's going to be, and I've said this before, more of a slow burn. It's going to be more numbers not quite accurate. I do believe we're going to see fraud and bad things coming out of the health insurance industry after this wave of mergers that nobody is paying attention to, but that Wall Street is making a lot of money out of while nobody's paying attention to it. Just like we saw with Enron and WorldCom in the beginning of 2001 and 2002, I think there's this other industry, which is health and insurance, which is going to have some of that fraud, in addition to the financial crisis that will remanifest in the next few years, but will be slowly burning anyway until that time. I think we get, again, a few years of a burn and then a bigger spike in the crisis financially.
All right. Well, Nomi Prins, thank you for your insight. And unless they contest this or Florida does something weird, it looks like, it doesn't look like it, and unless the numbers Fox News are putting out as well. It's now 281 at Fox News to 203 with Mitt Romney. So just a devastating landslide there. Of course, I put a video out a few days ago saying Mitt Romney wins, ? Because they were all saying Obama wins in a landslide. I was thinking it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy with fraud. I don't have a dog in this fight. I like Romney's rhetoric better on Second Amendment and things, but I know that it's just rhetoric. So I've always stated it's just rhetoric. It's just the projection I'm hearing from Romney sounded better, but like a person held underwater, anything looks good. But quite frankly, for this radio show, if I was a globalist, from a cynical perspective, look out, the InfoWars is about to go into high gear because talk radio is intrinsically conservative and libertarian. And I've been through this before, and I was bashing Bill Clinton. I got up to 100 radio stations. And then as soon as I got back on the air when Bush got in and was bashing him, I went down to about 35 radio stations in 6 months. And then slowly, built back up to over 100. Now we're going over 140 or so on big stations. And so it's a very sick feeling to have exposed Obama. And as long as I bash Obama and I'm bashing Romney, it's okay. Well, now Romney's gone. I'm going to be going after Obama because he's the front guy. But it's just so sick how partisan baloney works. Because now, even though I didn't want Obama to get elected, I didn't want Romney to get elected, but it just feels dirty to know that now this country is going to be in the fight of its life, no matter who got in, but really under Obama. And they're going to come after the guns. They're going to come out. They're coming after the churches with mandates. They're coming after the energy sector. It is going to be a three-ring circus. The Republicans are going to try to impeach him. Get ready for that on Fast and Furious and on the Benghazi situation. It is going to be massive fireworks. Closing comments on that statement, if you agree or disagree, Nomi.
I think it is. I think though the one thing I'd add is the accountability, for the economy, for these issues. Just went out the, if there was ever going to be any, has really gone out the window, and that's really just sad for the economic state of the country, as well as, you know, civil liberties and everything else. And I've said this. It's not a question of bashing. It's a question of wanting leaders to be accountable for what they're doing and not pretend they aren't doing it, and hope that everyone will believe them. And unfortunately, what we saw in this election is that, you know, many people will. And from my perspective, I just see a lot of things happening. As all these acts getting passed, whether it's Obamacare or the Dodd-Frank Act, saying they're doing things that they're not doing. I don't mind agreeing or disagreeing with things, but when you just don't even have a platform of sort of a common truth to start from, it's really frustrating. It's total fraud wrapped within scams, wrapped within lies.
It is diversion within diversion, and this is a mandate for more tyranny. Not that Romney was good, but, you know, if they kicked Obama out, it would be a mandate for change. They're saying, no, we like the way this is going if you believe the election results. And quite frankly, there are so many people that want their free goodies, even though it destroys their future, that it might even be a real election. Nomi Prins, thank you so much for the time. You were going to say something?
Yeah. I was saying Wall Street's on top of that heap of wanting their good. I mean, it's throughout the system. That's the issue.
Nomi, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
We've